I'll call this meeting to order of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. It is July 28, 2022, 5 o'clock p.m. At this time, I'll recognize staff to call the roll.
Curtis Casefang is excused. Ian Dunn.
Here.
John Reese.
Here.
Rob Allen.
Here.
And Wes Tripp.
Here. Announce that we do have the presence of a quorum today. Welcome to the July 2022 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission's Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Wes Tripp, and I am the chair of the committee. I will ask all attendees here to please, if you haven't already, sign the attendance roster up front. Agenda and staff reports are available online, and a handout of the meeting procedure is available as well. The Certificate of Appropriateness Committee of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission is a city council appointed body. It consists of residents of historic districts, architects, intern architects, architectural consultants and contractors, attorneys and historians, also urban planners and historic preservationists. At this time, I'll recognize each commission member to introduce themselves and to highlight their relevant experience. Starting with Ian.
Ian Dunn. I'm a Raleigh historian, and I work at the State Archives of North Carolina.
Again, my name is Wes Tripp. I'm a local attorney here in Raleigh.
My name is John Reese. I am an architect registered in the state of North Carolina, and I am a resident of the Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood.
Hello, I'm Rob Allen. I am a Raleigh native and a resident of the Bullen Heights Historic District and work at a local commercial architecture firm.
And I'm Francis Raspberry. I'm with a local law firm as well, and I'm legal counsel to the Certificate of Appropriateness Committee.
And if staff could also introduce themselves as well.
Good evening, I'm Erin Morton. I am staff to the RHDC. I've been with the city for about 2.5 years now, and I have a master's in historic preservation from Clemson.
And I am Colette Canane. I'm also staff to the commission. I've been with the city about 4 years, and I also have a master's in historic preservation.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Question before the committee is approval of the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to waive reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections or additions that need to be noted?
No.
Hearing none, the question before the committee is a motion to adopt the minutes from June 23, 2022 meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. I will note that we had 2 minor works were approved between the period of June 10, 2022 to July 11, 2022. Is there any staff presentation for that? No. Okay. All right, we are now ready to proceed to our evidentiary hearings. Prior to the meeting, notice has been sent to property owners within 100 feet of the properties in question. Legal ad were placed in local paper, and signage has been posted at the site. Commission members received a copy of each application, staff reports, and were to have visited each property. Staff reports were made publicly available with the agenda. North Carolina law requires that major work applications must be approved in an evidentiary hearing and that persons have an opportunity to address an application if they desire. Evidentiary hearings are conducted in a quasi-judicial format. During the hearing, we receive evidence to determine that proposed changes are not incongruous with the special character of the district or the historic property. We review this evidence against guidelines referenced in the city ordinance before issuing a certificate of appropriateness. Each application is heard in the same way as listed in the meeting procedure handout. The quasi-judicial format of the hearing requires that we be impartial. The written staff reports are evidence presented just as any other evidence and were made available to us, the applicants, and the public at the same time. If any of us had reason to discuss the specific details of an application before today, we will ask to be excused from hearing that application. There is no time limit on testimony, but repetition is discouraged. Because of the quasi-judicial format of our hearings, which is the commission hears evidence and then judges whether the change is not incongruous, we are required by North Carolina law to affirm or swear persons that speak before the commission and offer evidence. Speakers will be affirmed at the beginning of each case. Staff will be sworn or affirmed now for all cases on the agenda. For each member of staff that it will be presenting today, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give on the matters on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is Erin Morton. I do.
And Colette says I do as well.
Okay, the first application up is an old application, COA 00392022, 1011 Oberlin Road.
All right, so we'll start off with a brief staff presentation, and then I'll kick it over to the applicants
Hold
who
on,
also
just
have a...
hold on just a second.
Oh,
Sorry. Is there any member of the committee who has an interest in this matter or otherwise feels that they cannot be impartial or fair in hearing this case?
Hey, Wes, I should say, acknowledge that I do know the architect and the attorney. I've, know them in a professional and friendly capacity, but don't feel like there's any conflict of interest preventing me from fairly evaluating this case.
Does any other committee member have an issue with that? Okay.
Chairman, just suggest you ask if anyone in attendance has an objection to proceeding.
Does any member here on the application have any objection to proceeding on this application, having knowledge of what committee member Allen has just stated? Seeing none, we will proceed. All the individuals who will be presenting for this application, please come forward. And if you will be presenting, ask that you state your name and address for the record.
Davis Holt, 3800 Glenwood Avenue, Suite 150. Worth Mills, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302, Raleigh 27612.
And Rusty Long, 1305 Kingston Ridge Road in Cary, North Carolina, 27511.
And will all of you be presenting evidence today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just ask that each of you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And is the property owner present? Great. Thank you. All right. Now you can go.
All right. This will be KCOA 39-2022. It is 1011 Oberlin Road in the Oberlin Village Historic District. The work request is to construct 3 attached primary residences with attached garages, construct 3 driveways, and that says construct a 4-foot fence. I believe it's actually been amended to a 42-inch fence now. These are some images of the existing property from Oberlin Road. You can see the existing house on the left, which was previously approved for demolition via Major Works COA last year. A clearer view of toward the rear of the lot. And this is the corner here at Oberlin and Mayview Road. The proposed residences, one will face Oberlin and 2 will face Mayview. And we're just going to move down Mayview Road to the rear of the property. And staff concerns, which are enumerated in the staff report, include a series of notes here. Notably, the built area analysis does not appear to include hardscaping in the total percentage provided. There is no historic evidence provided to support connected building forms and proposed built mass and spacing. There are no historic examples of detached or attached garages in the district. A revised garage design appears as though it is a garage with no door rather than an attached open carport. Generally, driveways are unpaved in the district, as noted in the special character essay. Some final material specifications questions regarding fiberglass windows and cellular PVC trim, which have not previously been requested in this district. The final fence design was not provided in the planting plan, does not account for the new proposed front walk to Oberlin Road. And you guys can take it away. I can scroll for you if you say next or.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kick it off. As the developer and a local Raleigh native, I want to thank you guys for your time. As you will see and have seen, I expect, we've completed extensive revisions to our plan, and we're excited to work towards a successful solution with you. We listened to your feedback and incorporated those things into our new design. I understand that having 3 attached units in the historic district is rare. However, our city council has provided a text change in the UDO that does allow this for this in its current zoning. I appreciate your time and consideration, and I'll let Worth and Rusty take it from here.
Thank you, Davis. So at the May meeting and within that May staff report, the COA committee gave us constructive feedback on items that they thought that we should address to create a more congruous development with the Oberlin Village Historic District. As Aaron mentioned, those were the inclusion of garages, not having any homes face Oberlin Road, at that time the asymmetry of our fenestration, not having any walkways to front doors from the driveways or from public rights-of-way, fence height, opacity, the orientation of the siding, vertical versus horizontal, extending the porch width to allow for comfortable living space or recreation space for those residents. And lastly, creating different architecture among the 3 homes to give them a little bit more differentiation and not so repeatable. So over the last 6 weeks or so, we have addressed each of those items either through corrections in the plan or for providing additional evidence within the historic district as to the precedent established by contributing structures during the period of significance. I won't read off all of the verbatim on this slide, but we did convert garages to a more open-air carport. We have converted a home to now face Oberlin Road, consistent with other properties that do have frontage on Oberlin Road. We have created symmetrical fenestration of the lower and upper story windows. We have included pedestrian access via sidewalks, walkways from driveways and to Oberlin Road. We have lowered the fence height to 42 inches. We have changed the siding from vertical siding to horizontal siding, consistent with other contributing structures within Oberlin Village. We've extended the porches and we have added some differentiation between the homes, both in gable size between the 2 homes that face Mayview Road. We have 1 home that faces Oberlin, and we have added some various paint colors to, again, just further differentiate between those 3 homes. As Davis mentioned, one of the items that was discussed was staff's concern about the repeatable building form, kind of house. I will note that, as Davis did as well, that a apartment building type separated by vertical party walls and with a repeating building form, it would be a new sort of architectural style within the Oberlin Village Historic District, but it is not the first apartment nor the first multifamily living use within the Oberlin Village Historic District. This slide here shows the Google Street View of 2304 Bedford Avenue. Although not built in the period of significance, it is almost 40 years old, and it is a 2-story, 4-unit apartment building. Aside from the horizontal orientation of the siding, it does little to contribute to the historical character of the district. Our proposed project at 1011 Oberlin Road accomplishes the city's goal of including gentle density within existing single-family neighborhoods while maintaining an architectural detail and architectural style that is commonplace for those contributing structures within the district itself. Now I'll turn it over to Rusty Long, our architect, and he will walk you in greater detail through some of those changes that I referenced a slide ago. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us here again. As you recall, probably from 2 months back, we were proposing 3 attached apartment homes on this property with front-loading garages. The primary changes to the floor plan that you see from our last iteration include reorienting the easternmost unit to face Oberlin Road, attaching sidewalks directly to the right-of-way at all 3 units, and an update that has happened that's in the 3D images that you see in some slides later includes opening that carport entirely rather than having a portal opening, as was mentioned in staff's report, as well as reductions in the driveway. What we're showing is paved because of the need for per zoning for parking to be paved. We actually limited that down to just 2 strips with a grass strip in between rather than being one solid driveway. On the second floor, we made adjustments to allow windows to center wherever possible with windows below. The big difference that you'll see here is in the window, the fenestration, and the overall building height. We reduced that down some to be in more keeping with other buildings in the neighborhood. We also found precedent for a concrete topped, brick-faced front porch. Those are later in the slide deck, and changed the roof lines from unit to unit, allowing them to read as standalone houses. The easternmost unit being the most prominent, we significantly changed that to face Oberlin Road to create a big porch that is actually deep enough for furniture to actually be occupied, as well as create a symmetrical massing more consistent with other precedent in the neighborhood. This west elevation, you'll note, is not correct based on the updated renderings, which open that carport. In these updated 3D renderings, you can see that we differentiated both color and roof lines here. We changed the fence to be 42 inches high per staff recommendations, and are showing what is a white picket fence, 50% opaque. The staff requirement, staff comment referring to parking between structures and there being a driveway width opening between buildings. Because these by zoning have to be attached, we sought to create as much of a gap as possible by eliminating those, not just the garage doors, but the portal framing, and bringing that roof down as much as possible. You will note that there are sidewalks facing, the 2 westernmost units face Mayview and have sidewalks directly on that centered front door, and then the easternmost unit on Oberlin goes straight out to the sidewalk on that side. The other revision that's taken place since those elevations was to open up that last carport, the one that's not between units entirely, which is more consistent with the other precedents in the neighborhood. And that's just the view of the rear showing that fence. We did an analysis based on our footprint as well as GIS data on other properties in the neighborhood. This was based on just building footprint. We were not aware of the need to look at hardscape when we did this percentage. Since then, we have recalculated that, again, based on GIS data, which is the best information that we have. The coverage within the district varies between 17 and 77%, and our property is around 55% with the revisions that you see here today. I can go through the individual precedents, but I presume that's not necessary at this time unless you guys have questions. That concludes our presentation.
Is there anyone present here who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? Is there anyone present who has questions or wishes to make comments regarding the application? All right, at this time, I'll recognize fellow commission members for questions that they have of the applicants.
There's one difference that I noticed between your plans and these renderings that you just gave us. In your former plans, there was a concrete strip between the driveway and the sidewalk.
Yes, we
That's been
eliminated that.
deleted.
Yes.
And that's going to stay that way?
That is
Okay.
intentional, yes,
Okay.
to eliminate that additional.
Also, there's this sidewalk going to the little house on Oberlin. The secondary
Oh,
sidewalk.
yes, to the
I'm
gate to
curious.
the backyard.
That goes to the backyard.
Yes, there's a gate at that side of the wraparound.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a question for staff. I didn't read anything in the analysis where there is a standard for symmetrical or at least center-lined entryways on the face of the facade. Is that a thing or is that not a thing?
So our initial staff comments noted that as a difference between existing historic residences in this district specifically. It is not noted as a general guideline.
Okay, okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Anything else? I've got a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. Couple questions for the applicants. Rusty, you mentioned, did I hear you correctly that you said they must be attached?
Yeah.
Is that a zoning requirement based on, okay, can you help us understand that a little bit?
Yep, thank you. And this is a requirement of the Oberlin Village NCOD, Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District, that establishes minimum and maximum lot sizes. The lot, as of today, is not large enough to subdivide into 3 separate lots for 3 single-family homes and maintain the minimum lot size that's required under the NCOD. So in order to fit 3 houses, they were designed as, I guess these would be designed these would be considered apartments because they're staying on one lot. And they are, again, attached by that vertical party wall that is the open-air garage / carport.
So even the text change for, and I'm sure you've researched this, Worth, but for a compact development, they could not be standalone, 3 standalone units on this size parcel.
Right. So
the
NCOD would still regulate that minimum and maximum lot size. And I believe it's 5,000 square feet minimum, 12,000 square feet maximum, if I'm remembering that correctly. But if this were subdivided into 3 lots, they would each be below that minimum lot size. And that's irrespective of the compact development text change.
Okay, thanks.
These don't have my question is, there's not a common wall, though, between these?
On the back there is.
There is a portion of common wall that you can see.
What's common?
That storage wall right there
Mm-hmm.
connects both structures.
And you couldn't get away, you couldn't do away with that wall.
That's right, yeah. So it couldn't be, the carport cannot be fully open front to back for that same reason.
But you could do 2 units or 2 buildings, not 3, and still meet and do the lot size, correct? Why?
It's 9,000.
The lot size isn't large enough for us to be able to subdivide that and fit 2 homes on.
Can you help us with the lot area? Sorry.
It's 9,800 and change, I believe.
Total lot? Okay.
Can you respond to the question that staff had brought up about you at 44% and they see it at, what is it?
60-something.
60-something%, yeah.
For the built area.
Yeah,
The
so
built
that
area.
was based on the previous layout with the additional paving that we eliminated. So there's a lot more paving in this scheme than in the one that you see in the 3D scheme. And our analysis of the other structures in the neighborhood did not originally account for paving on the other lots either. We were just looking at building footprint to building footprint in our analysis. So we both updated that calculation and reduced our amount of paving.
And I can, if I can, Rusty. Yeah, so originally what we calculated when we were looking at the size of this development compared to others within the district, we calculated building coverage, which again is just the 2D square footage of structured space within a lot, as opposed to your built area, which includes any semi-permeable or impermeable surfaces. So this slide shows only what is taken up by structure. The figures that Rusty presented just a minute ago, those were the updated percentages that reflect the built area, which does take into account other site features like garages or driveways and walkways and
All
things like
impervious.
that. That's right.
How did staff calculate it?
The same way. It was based off of their scale drawings, so they probably have a more accurate count than we do with
Okay.
that additional direction.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Are there any other questions from the commission members?
I have one more.
Yeah, go
Wes,
ahead.
Pertaining
Oh, I did
to,
have one.
sorry, a lot of questions. It's a big project, so a lot of questions. The windows, I see a mix of, so first, I commend the updated studies you did for the precedents. I think that's very helpful for us to see. I think there's still some areas where it could be a little bit more aligned, but I might be splitting hairs over design there. But I see a mix of double hung and casement style windows, so I'd love to understand. And they're close to the same size, so I would understand why not just use one over the other. And then the follow up to that, Rusty, will be the material used. The Pella windows, staff reports say that it's a fiberglass window, which there's not a precedent for that in this district.
Okay.
So just trying to understand where that decision is coming from.
Yeah, that was a new piece of information for us because we didn't have that level of specification last time.
Okay.
We're not opposed to going with a different manufacturer of window. Likewise, the cellular PVC trim, that's a typical specifications that we utilize when we use fiber cement siding because of how hard it is to work with fiber cement trim, but we're not opposed to changing those to something else if there is I presume vinyl is out of the question. We wouldn't propose that anyway, but that wood or some other clad window would be appropriate. We're fine with that. The incidences where there is a lower window, they were previously square windows, which was discouraged by the committee in our last meeting. So we tried to keep them relatively vertical, but those are fixed windows in locations where there's insufficient floor space inside due to a shower or countertop, that sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't we as a commission or as a committee, because of how zoning works when there is, because it used to go to Board of Adjustment if there was an issue with zoning, a change in zoning, or an approval that goes outside of what the existing zoning is. Do we have that here in this scenario to, even though the zoning says that they can't have 3 attached houses on that size lot, can we override that?
No, that's an
Okay.
interesting question when posed specifically to the NCOD, which is just a different type of overlay district. There are certain aspects that the COA process can override in base zoning. It's a very limited number of things, such as setback and siting of the building. But those lot requirements are, we'd not specifically override that.
Okay. So how do we go about even discussing this case, given the fact that our hands are tied because the zoning basically allows for something that the guidelines do not?
Well, you're tasked with reviewing this for congruity with the guidelines.
Okay. That's what I want to hear.
I would focus there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Reese, I'll just make this comment. The zoning ordinance of the city, that is the zoning ordinances that are in the Unified Development Ordinance, do set out use categories, and traditionally those uses have followed labels such as apartments, townhomes, condominiums, and so forth. The general zoning trend is away from that, differentiating between, and in fact now I think there have been recent amendments to the UDO to relax, if you will, those differentiations between districts where townhouses are allowed or apartments are allowed versus just simply the density standard. The density standard has been satisfied. Your obligation under the COA process is simply to make a determination on congruity.
Okay.
This term use can get you confused
Yeah.
because the zoning ordinance, and I pull the ordinance out before the hearing just to say, there's a component of use that relates mostly to functional activity and the impact of a use, and then there's some components that are like the form of the structure, townhouse form as opposed to single-family detached form. I think my suggestion would be, in order to look at the question of the issue of congruity, just look not so much at these traditional labels of townhouse apartments or condominium uses, but just look at the form, shape, size, those criteria, those categories that are in the guidelines.
Lovely.
That are your task at hand.
Okay. That helps clear it up quite nicely. Thank you.
And you all may respond to that question as well.
I think Mr. Raspberry did a great job, but as stated, the underlying zoning district regulates both the use and the building types that are permitted within any zoning district in the city of Raleigh. In the R10 district, the apartment building type and the multi-unit living are both an allowable building type and an allowable use. This project is in conformance with the underlying base zoning. It is in conformance with the additional form-based regulations that are prescribed by the Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District, and we will leave it at that.
I just want to make the point, though, that our purview is congruous issues only. That basically anything outside of that is not relative to what we need to discuss.
I think we're roaming into committee debate. We're still at the question stage.
yeah.
So, are there any other questions for the applicant or staff?
No.
All right, I will note that, for the record, that no evidence in opposition was presented, and that the statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. At this time, I will close the evidentiary hearing, and we will proceed to committee discussion.
You want to go?
You go ahead, John.
You go first.
Based on what we just discussed, I feel like the carport or garage, the connection between the buildings is what makes it incongruous to me. It's what I'm really struggling with. It's also the single element that's tipping the built area against any of the precedents. So that's why I had those questions about, did they have to be connected? Because
Well, the precedents that they have shown were done either before the district was
sure.
done, or it was done without any kind of review through this body.
Sure.
So in my mind, those precedents don't count.
Sure.
I would like to see precedents that are follow within the guidelines that we have set up and or been reviewed by us at some level, or had been contributing to the district in itself. I agree with the attached garage, and it is a garage without a door, it's a deal killer for me.
Agreed.
It's just a flat deal.
It's not a
killer.
carport.
It's not a carport.
Although I do recognize their work on this. They've done a lot
yeah, no,
to,
this is
to
eons.
address our concerns.
Absolutely.
But the carport does sort of
Yeah.
ruin the deal.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
I don't know if this is possible, but the NCOD has regulations or rules against, how much you can build on a lot. And I'd like confirmation that 2 houses can't be built on this lot. I know they said that. It's not that I don't believe them, but it'd be good to, because it's what, 9,000 square feet, did they say? That's almost a quarter of an acre.
That's bigger than my lot.
Almost a quarter of an acre, and it seems like there are other lots in the district that are less than that. So
I agree with you. I'd like real evidence of that. At the same time, having what they have in terms of the 3 and the distance of the driveway space between is congruent with other conditions in the neighborhood, correct?
If you would like us to
I
add
have to ask
additional
you.
comment,
No,
you can open it.
I won't do that, I promise. It says so here in your report. That driveway width is typical of the space between to provide light and air. So, I mean, while I agree with you, Ian, I'd like to see that, because it would be helpful just to confirm. It is not going to be a deal killer that it go to, that the spaces between the houses be farther apart than what they are. I do also want to, and I'm glad that you said, Rusty, what the window material can change to. I would be in favor of wood windows, because that is the standard. I also would be in favor of, I would also be in favor of what I think Rob said about more of just a consistent window through the whole thing. That being double hung windows, because that again is more consistent with the architectural elements that are existing in the neighborhood. The and they would be less square. You know, that's yeah, they would be less square. And we never really talked about wraparound porches as being a anomaly to the district. And I'm not opposed to what you have. But I think you've got it, you're getting there very, very, very methodically getting there. Even the idea of what you've done ever so slightly with stepping the 3 down, and I'd like to see more of that so that it's more reflective of what's happening over on 905, 906, or 907, 908, whatever those numbers are on Oberlin Road, those smaller 3 houses. I mean, you've got a really wonderful model there on that street to really emulate. You're just doing it in more of a scale that is of the houses across the street, the 3, or the Tucker House and those others. Not Tucker House, the
Turner House.
Turner House, thank you. But this driveway, this carport thing, not gonna fly. And I don't know if we want to defer this again. I don't know that we can, I don't know how we could actually say it in a way that, on the conditions, that there's just, I guess maybe we could just say that there's no structures between that there are 3 independent buildings.
If you'd like to speak more with the applicants to, now that they've heard discussion, to get additional input from them, you're welcome to do so.
I'd like to do that.
It's perfectly fine if the board wants to do that, if the committee wants to do that. I want to make about just the Mr. Chairman, if I may, members of the committee, I just thought I would, it was worth noting, because the findings and conclusions in a case like this, should you decide this case today, will be focused on whether the applicant has produced a prima facie case, that is prima facie evidence, to show congruity. So I think it just would be helpful in terms of giving guidance to staff in terms of the contents of any set of findings and conclusions to visit and revisit the standard, the legal standard, which is whether sufficient evidence has been produced by the applicant to show prima facie that that the proposal is congruous with the special character of the district. So it's not a matter of evaluating how it is received, but whether the quantity of evidence and sufficiency of evidence meets that prima facie standard, and you have to accept the evidence as being the facts as being true according to the evidence that was presented. And I don't mean to get bogged down too much in the legal distinctions here, but rather than just expressing one's evaluation of the design, that legal standard has to be whether the applicant has presented prima facie evidence in order to make the case for congruity.
It's my understanding that the committee would like to reopen the evidentiary hearing to hear from the applicants to respond based on our discussion. Is that a safe assumption? Okay. At this time, we'll reopen the evidentiary hearing for the applicants to respond to discussion that they've heard from the committee, and also to respond to any further questions.
One topic that I did want to provide a little bit more detailed for, and that we didn't touch on in much detail at all when we were first up here, is the carport question. This property here, 2313 Bedford Avenue, This is a split-level, single-family home built in 1966, which falls within the period of significance within the Oberlin Village Historic District. A little difficult to see there. It does contain a carport that has open air on its right side if you're looking at it from Bedford Avenue. Again, we could not incorporate all open air carports that match the style of 2313 Bedford Avenue, again, because the homes must be attached to qualify as an apartment building, which I will note again is a permitted building type, and multi-unit living is a permitted use within the R10 district. There are no use restrictions within the NCOD district. But we have been able to mimic that style for the westernmost house. Our project here at 1011 Oberlin Road is following the pattern of, as the historical report notes, and I quote, the most stylish mid-century modern style house in Oberlin Village. So we argue that, in fact, this is a defining building feature that was built within the period of significance within the Oberlin Village Historic Overlay District. I'll turn it back to Rusty for additional comments.
I appreciate the feedback on the windows and materials, and we're certainly open to revisiting window proportions, areas where we can't get the full depth window because of what's happening inside. We'd be open to a smaller window or elimination, whatever makes the most sense in order to be compatible with the district. Do I understand correctly from the committee that any connection between the units whatsoever would be incongruent with the district, in your opinion, regardless of whether it is a carport or other single-story connection? Is that
That's
correct?
my take.
Okay.
That's my take. Yes.
I want to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question, can I ask a question? Is the house on, that you referenced here, is it a contributing structure to the neighborhood?
This is, yes. I believe it's the last dated contributing structure within the district.
But I do want to make a point. Can I talk, can I comment, or can I just ask questions?
Yeah, let's stick to questions at this moment.
No other.
Any questions from the committee for the applicants? All right, at this time, I will reclose or close again the evidentiary hearing portion of this application and hearing, and open the floor to the committee for further debate.
I would just, my observation is that one example or precedent isn't a character defining feature of the entire district. It exists, precedent exists, but we would be tripling that precedent with approval.
Well, and it goes as another example of that, not every house is the Turner house in.
Sure, that's fair.
That's an anomaly. It is not the standard. In addition, I do not ever want to use the word carport when I describe what's between these two houses. It is a garage without a door. So even in this example, that's not a garage. What we see between these two at least two of them, is a garage without a door. And different animal completely.
Well, the applicant has demonstrated that it's an allowable use type, but I feel like but that's not under our purview. So, if we're to interpret the guidelines, I have to say that it's incongruous with the nature of the district.
Agreed.
Is there any other discussion among the committee? Rob, would you like to make that motion?
Sure, Wes. What's the appropriate,
It appears that the view of the committee is that the application as presented, the evidence presented, is incongruous with the historic character of this district. So it sounds like the motion would be that the application be denied because that the application and the evidence as presented is incongruous with the historic district. And I'm fine. Go ahead.
Do we give them the option to defer?
We can discuss that. I believe so. Correct.
I would prefer that we give them the
Yep.
option to defer versus deny it outright.
So,
Sometimes you ask if the applicant care to have it deferred in time and just.
We would appreciate if the committee would allow for a deferral.
for what?
so with that deferral, what would you like to request at a future hearing?
Well, I think if the applicant understands exactly what our major concerns are, they understand why we're deferring.
My understanding, based on listening to the discussion, is that the issue among the committee is the carport / garage and the connectedness of the building.
Yes. Our issue is, at least I don't want to speak for all of us, but I'll speak for myself, is that the district does not have evidence enough to support this design concept of attached garages between units.
All right, so I'll make a motion that this this application COA-0039-2022 be deferred in order to allow the applicant to address the committee's concerns about the carport / garage and the connectedness of the building. I've made the motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to make just a friendly amendment to it real quick. And
Go
that
ahead.
is that the materiality and window issues that we discussed would also be thought about as well.
And I accept that amendment. Motion is on the floor that I have made as well, including John's friendly amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right.
We'll see you again. Thank you.
We would like to thank you for coming and presenting your application. The motion was approved to deny the application, or I'm sorry, not deny the application, defer the application for further information to address the committee's concerns about carport garage and the connectedness of the building site proposal, as well as issues concerning the windows. This final vote of approval on this application will be conducted at the next meeting when minutes are approved. Official notification will be sent to the applicant after our next meeting. Thank you. All right, moving on next to new applications. COA 0064-2022, 319 East Jones Street. Is there any member of the committee who has an interest in this matter or otherwise feels that they cannot be impartial or fair in hearing this case?
I know Aaron very well, but that's here nor there.
Based on John's knowing the applicant, is there any issue among the committee about John proceeding with hearing this application?
No.
Does the applicant have a concern, or anyone else have a concern with John proceeding on with hearing this application?
I do not.
Okay. Are you two will be presenting on the application?
Yes.
Great. If you both could please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Erin Sterling Lewis, 1229 Cortland Drive.
Yes, my name is Rob Leandro, 319 East Jones Street.
All right. Next will be affirming you, so please both come forward, raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And is the property owner present? Great. Okay. Next, we'll recognize staff to make their presentation.
So as you mentioned, this is case COA 0064 2022 for 319 East Jones Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, a general HOD. The nature of the request is to remove a rear one-story addition, construct rear two-story addition and screen porch, construct rear deck, remove and replace front porch floor, remove concrete front steps, construct painted brick front steps, remove fencing, construct new fencing, replace shingle roof, and alter exterior paint colors. This is a view of the property from East Jones Street. And another from East Jones Street, there is a parking lot directly next door. And this is a view from the end of the driveway on Jones. And two detailed views of the front porch and the steps. This is moving to the west around the house. This is the west facade. A view of the current rear facade. And again, further back in the rear yard. Then spinning around and looking into the rear yard from that same vantage point. Moving around to the east facade. And again, the existing rear additions. And back to East Jones Street looking at the east facade. Staff concerns were largely the built area to open space. The provided calculations compare the existing, not the original. The porch alterations, there was not evidence provided to indicate the current condition of the porch floor steps. And information on built mass to open space, a tree protection plan, and material and construction detail information was not provided.
All right. At this time, the applicant, you have the floor to present evidence and statements in support of your application.
Okay, thank you. And I did submit a presentation to you.
I get a blank email from you. That may have been it.
Oh, okay. Well, the only difference is that I added some information about the built area to open space. And basically, there from the original house to the original lot was 88% open space. And now if you take in this proposal, the original house plus our proposed addition, the open space went down to 77%. So as you see on the site plan and look at the surrounding residences in comparison to their lot, this is a pretty big lot with a relatively small built area, leaving a lot of open space that we're trying to maintain. And even within the removal of the existing additions to the house, we're not increasing very much at all. I think it was 3.1% that we're adding with our proposed addition. Another thing that I would point out is that I think, if I'm reading it correctly in staff's congruity analysis, comment number 1, talking about the 2 existing rear additions and that the addition on the northeast corner and alterations to the northwest addition were approved in 2009 through COA. That was never done, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear and nobody was thinking that those additions were done in 2009 because they were done quite a bit earlier than that. And then the other 2 issues you brought up were about the condition of the front porch steps and the decking. And just in my opinion, I think they're tired, and the homeowners think the same thing and would like to improve them. And I think that actually the brick step addition that we're proposing to the front will actually be better looking than just the concrete. And then I would also say that we are in agreement with all of the conditions that staff has mentioned, and are more than happy to present those outstanding items when the time comes for construction, or before construction, or whatever's required of us. And that's all I have to say. Rob, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, our intent is to keep the house with all the historic charm it does. That's what we want to do here. The back that we're taking out, if you were to see it, has very little to no historic charm. The deck is falling apart, and it was built very recently. The front steps and the porch steps, the concrete is breaking off and detached now, so it's not original. And the wood on the front porch is not original, and it just has places where it can't be painted or treated, so we just need to, some of it's rotten, so we just need to replace that to make it all look the same. But we want to use the same tongue and groove type of board.
So you're just repairing that?
We're not changing the porch at all, we're just replacing the wood on the porch, the floor, but it's going to be the same tongue and groove. It's going to look exactly the same. So to speak.
Just new.
Is there any further evidence or statements from the applicant in support of the application?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? All right. At this time, I'm sorry. Is there anyone present who has questions or wishes to make a comment regarding the application? All right. At this time, I'll open the floor to my fellow commissioners for questions.
I'm very curious as if you have any evidence to support your claim that the back that you plan to demolish is not original, because
yes.
I have a lot of evidence to suggest that it is original.
It is, I mean, I don't know what sort of evidence you guys are looking for, and I think I added this in the application the second time around, but Rob and Jill, the other homeowner, and I went through the house on the inside and of course the outside. I mean, obviously they're very familiar with it, but things like the fact that the additions, and I'm considering them two additions, because with my eyes I see them as one addition was done at one time and another addition was done at the other, and that the original house did end at the back of the existing kitchen. And so the additions are not only set in from the main structure, but also they're much lower, and have different characters, different windows. All of the window language around the entire existing house is the same, except for in the back, especially the kind of lean-to addition that's off of the living room. Other things that give us clues that it's not original are that there's no evidence in the flooring, this is all interior, of any radiator heat, which is present in all the rest of the house. Also, the flooring is different. The ceiling heights are very different than the original house. So that's all the evidence that I have. And so I don't know what else you could, you may be looking for that we could provide for you. And Rob, if you had something.
The boards are much, I mean, the wood floors are entirely different. They go a different direction and they're much skinnier. There are no radiator holes. We also know through the neighbor, the original second owner of the home lived there for 80 years, and we know that she closed that in sometime after her brother moved in as an older adult. He lived back there as an apartment, that was finished at that point. That's what we were told from the neighbor who was friends with the owner about the history of our house.
When you say closed in, which portion are you talking about, closed in?
The one-story addition that was added.
The whole thing?
That was my understanding after she owned it in the 40s, I believe, but I don't know exactly when. But that's when he moved back in, and it was used as a kitchen. The kitchen was a bedroom at one point in time, we believe, but that back area is just completely different. Also, the door heights are different. When you walk through to the back, you have to go. It's a lower height. It goes down.
Well, I think it was a 2012 COA, the last one, or maybe it was the 09 that you referred to. In that COA application, they refer to it as being original. Not to mention the fact that it shows up on the 1903, 1909, and 1914 Sanborn maps in exactly the same footprint. The porch on the east side and the north part was closed in sometime around after 1950, which is an alteration, but it seems to me by looking at the exterior of that part of the house that it is original. That's all I can tell you. But thank you.
Sure.
John, any questions, or Rob?
Yeah, Aaron, I have questions about the proposed windows. Can you, there was not a lot of information in the application other than the elevation. They look similar. Can you elaborate a little bit on the?
Yeah, it's really match existing, size, proportion, all of that.
And how about the divisions within them? I see it's 2/2.
Yep.
Is that true divided light, simulated divided light?
True divided lights, that's the goal, to make it look as much like the original as possible.
Okay.
Aaron, I want to go back to the front porch issue about it being tired. I get that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, folks here, our issue is congruency with what's built other places in the neighborhood, and concrete steps are more congruent than brick steps, as I understand.
Would it be fair to request a congruency analysis?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that works.
that would be helpful,
Okay.
because I'm like you, I don't have a dog in that fight, I just am looking for congruency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we can discuss with the homeowners, whether it's brick or new concrete.
Right.
Regardless, it needs to be replaced in our opinion.
Gotcha.
So,
That's
yeah,
clear.
whatever is most in keeping, and if
Okay.
it's okay with them.
Because that was, I mean, in staff's report, that's what they kind of bring up, is that issue. And we have that issue in Boylan Heights as well. So it made
Okay.
sense to me that that's why that kind of, it wasn't a aesthetic thing, it was a congruency thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Other than that, I'll just make the comment, I think it's lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the committee? All right, I will note for the record that no evidence in opposition was presented and that the statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. At this time, I will make a final call for questions. And hearing none, close the evidentiary hearing for this application and proceed to committee discussion.
I don't have any issue with this application, other than just the congruency issue I mentioned relative to the brick steps.
You don't have any issue with the fact that that part of the house, I won't call it an addition, because I don't believe that it is an addition. You don't have any issue with that being demolished? I think their evidence was interesting and not something that I expected to hear, but.
Yeah, and that's what's throwing me.
Mhm.
Because I know you're right, and I know they're right. So, I mean, what it seems to suggest to me is that that form might have always been original, but that might have been torn down and redone within the way that they're describing.
After the period of significance? Not with that siding. There's 10 layers of paint on that siding.
I don't know, Ian. That's a good question. Show me the picture of of the area that we're talking about here.
On page 8 of the application.
That's the area that was closed in.
So what, and all of that gets taken down? Everything past the original box?
Well, Ian's saying it is all the original box.
Yeah.
Well, that was originally a porch that was closed in, according to the Sanborn map. The only thing is that that German siding is on that area that was closed in as well. And it also looks like it's 100 years old, so that sort of doesn't line up with what I'm saying.
Aaron, I can't ask questions. Yes, please.
At this time, we're going to reopen the evidentiary hearing portion of this application to ask questions of the applicant or staff.
Aaron, what would you do if we said you can't tear it down?
I would say that, I think that everything I know about RHDC is about preserving the most character-defining aspect of the project, the property. And in my opinion, this is the least character-defining element of the entire parcel of land. And even if some of this was original or under roof, all open, who knows? I don't know how to prove it beyond what we know from the interior. And I totally hear what you're saying. I don't fully understand it, but if you were to go on the inside of the house, you would probably agree. I don't know what other proof we could offer up. One other thing is there's basement under the existing house, but not under this rear addition or this rear portion of the house. It's all crawl space. But yeah, I mean, I would just ask you guys to consider, can't we tear it down because it's not on a character defining, you can't even see this from the street. You cannot see it from, yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, but
What do you mean?
it just doesn't work that way. The whole property is regulated. Can you speak to? Am I allowed to?
Yeah, ask questions, yes.
Can you speak to what the underside, the crawl space, looks like?
The crawl space
Like
in this part?
Yeah, like
No,
the
I did
structure
not.
underneath the floor. What does it look like?
It's, I mean, this, I keep calling it the addition, I hope that's okay. This addition, these additions are, they're not in good shape at all. I did not go into the crawl space, just didn't do that. I went into the basement of the existing house and things like that, but yeah.
That's what I wanted to see when I was there. That's the only thing I wanted to see was what the underside of that floor looks like in comparison to the actual house. Because that would have confirmed it for me.
Yeah.
Have you had a structural engineer look at this?
Yes, yes.
What is their analysis?
He actually didn't provide analysis on old versus new or addition versus not, things like that, but we could certainly ask him to. This Chuck Lysett has a lot of experience with
sure.
historic stuff.
I mean, does that sway anything, Ian, from a structural standpoint? No, because it's repairable.
want to jam up your project. But I mean, I couldn't sleep if I just approved it and y'all tore
No,
down
I agree,
something
and,
that-
you know, I think that this will come back to bite us if we don't.
Especially since there was already a COA on file that mentions this as being original.
I don't see any other way than to defer it.
Let's stick to questions at this moment before we move on to further discussion. Are there any further questions for the applicant or staff? All right, at this time, I'll close the evidentiary hearing again and move to committee discussion. Yes, go ahead.
Another point, just to be clear, and I don't know if the picture's there, but I think it's this picture. Clearly, the back of this house has added doors and windows. Those are brand new. Floor to ceiling, 3 windows across. That was added at some point in time, if you go there.
Yeah.
Those were added underneath, and I'm no structural engineer. I've crawled under it. It definitely is different. The brick in the basement portion, the cellar portion, is green painted, a different style of brick than if you go to the columns as you climb underneath. I've crawled under there many times wiring our house. It's just, it is different. It was added at some point in time in that section right there.
Yeah, these are things that we need to confirm
Sure, I
for
understand.
ourselves. We trust what you're saying, but we
You're
do.
more than welcome to come
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
It's always open.
At this time, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and move to committee discussion.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, I'll just make this copy. This is just a reminder. Decisions are to be reached by the committee based on evidence in the record and presented at this hearing. And the evidence that you're allowed to consider would be the application and all of the attachments with the application, any further documentary submissions by the applicant, the testimony that you heard, and the staff report together with any evidence that's part of the staff report or that staff might offer under oath as testimony in this hearing. Independent knowledge, historical knowledge, recollections, independent investigations are not going to be allowed to be considered, and I think that's particularly important when you're dealing with issues that could be pivotal in your determination. I think you've sent enough signals to the applicant that if the case is deferred, they sort of know these topics that probably need to be fleshed out a bit more that you all have some concerns about. But I think it might be an appropriate time just to remind you that you have to use what you hear and what has been presented and the testimony that's offered, and not independent knowledge that you all may have and experience with a prior case that you all sat in. Now, that presents a very interesting question.
Yeah.
But I would be concerned about relying on your recollection of a particular case and a decision that you all might be concerned, a past decision that's inconsistent with action that you might take on this case, and you might want to ask staff perhaps to look into the files on those cases and see if there is information there, if you all are seeking that evidence. But the point to emphasize is that it needs to be evidence that is qualified to be the basis for your decision, not your own independent knowledge or other than your view of the property when you visit the property. I think that's probably acceptable, but your own knowledge and information beyond that off the record is probably not to be considered in your decision.
So I guess my thought would be to request staff to find out what's going on here. Or is it original?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's got to know somewhere.
It's not all up to staff, though.
Well, then how do we, all right, well then, or the applicant, prove to us that this is not original.
Mr. Reese, my answer to that would be you are required to make your decision based on the evidence that comes in. That's just the legal standard that we're subject to and that you all are subject to. I understand your concern. I don't mean to make light of that, but that's the law that applies in these cases, as our appeals courts have handed down to us, that your decision is based only on qualified evidence in the case that you receive and that you hear.
Would you consider opening the hearing again for staff comment?
Yes, and at this time, reopen the evidentiary hearing for staff comments on the discussion.
Thank you. It sounds like the question is just, is this original or not, and how can we try to determine that more clearly in the evidence on record? If you defer, there would be some amount of time for the applicants to go and do some more physical investigation at the property and provide photo evidence of the areas that the committee hasn't been able to access but have questions about, that typically do tell you if you're dealing with an addition or something that was built simultaneously with the larger structure, such as the floor structure itself, not just the floor ring, although that's usually a pretty good indicator as well. Something you may also consider so that you can have evidence submitted into the record would be to contact the State Historic Preservation Office's technical staff. They are literally on Jones Street, a few blocks away from this property, and may be able to help you with that physical investigation and provide some information that you could then bring back to the committee. Sometimes it's just very hard to tell if something is original or not, and if that's the case, at least the committee knows the due diligence has been done, and they'll have to move from there. But
Okay.
just a suggestion.
Good suggestions. Am I allowed to ask a question?
If you're willing to hear it, yes.
Yes.
The question is, if we come back with evidence that continues to maintain our position that this is not original, there still is that Sanborn map issue that's showing some sort of roof coverage on the rear of the house. I know it's a dumb question, sort of, but y'all can say, no, you can't do this whole project because someone might think that this is original. Is it really that cut and dry, or let's say we talk to a structural engineer and the State Historic Preservation Office and they say, you know what, those are original. Then do you say, oh, it's a done deal, you're not able to do this? Is it that black and white? Or can this be evaluated on okay, so fine, those are original, but they're also in horrible shape, and really should go? They're pretty nasty.
The committee has heard evidence about the property differences between the what you view as the original portion of the property versus this back portion of the property. Members of the committee have expressed concerns about whether this back portion of the property is original or not. Whether if this committee decides to defer the application and then you present evidence to support your contention that the back portion is not original, I can't speculate as to what a future committee could do. Some of us may be here at that future hearing, others of us might not. So I can't speculate as to what a future committee would do based on the evidence that you would present at a potential future hearing.
Ask it differently. I think the committee have the authority to approve something that requires an original piece like this to be replaced. I guess that's the real question, not what the committee would do. Does it even have the authority?
If I may respond to that, I think it's very important just to look at the staff report, and particularly the historic design guidelines, the district guidelines that are recited, and specifically with respect to the addition question and also with respect to the porches. And those are the legal standards. Those are the guidelines. Those are the criteria that the committee members are wrestling with in terms of deciding whether the proposal as offered it represents a congruous improvement or not. So that's about the best evidence, the best signal to you, I suppose, that the committee can give you is that the language of the guidelines is referenced in the staff report is very critical, and that's what they're wrestling with, and so the historic significance or the significance of the existing additions, whether they were original or not, whether they were in, those are the issues that bring you right down to the guideline that they are trying to apply in this case. Otherwise, obviously, you'd have to fashion your own case, but that's what's going on up here, and those are the issues and the evidence relating to those issues that are of concern to the committee.
The way I interpret all of that is that I look for evidence that you are working with as much as you possibly can the original conditions without negating those original conditions.
I believe we're still in the evidentiary portion of this second evidentiary portion. Are there any additional questions for the applicant or staff?
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll move to further discussion on the application.
I think I need more evidence.
Okay. I mean, I respect that. I mean, there's enough confusion on this one that I think it begs the question. And again, I am in full support of always, and I think us as a committee are always in full support of doing what we can to work with existing conditions as well as not be a hindrance as much as we possibly can. I have never been so confused about an original thing in my life.
Well, the guidelines do provide clarification about additions that whether or not they're original to the house, you know, they do serve some, they do provide historic context to the value of the property and should not be destroyed. You know, this, you know, whether or not it's original or just old, I think we can all agree it's been altered significantly, and you know, that's maybe therein is somehow a way to make a case for it. But I agree with Ian that we can't just move to allow demolition of the one-story portions based on the evidence we've received.
Correct. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Yep. So
I would move to defer the application until we have more evidence on the, to the best of applicant's knowledge, the age of the one-story additions to the north of the property, to add some analysis to the congruity of the front porch steps that are being proposed to be replaced, so that we have a better understanding of their congruity within the neighborhood. And then would just also like to ask for details on the windows when the application is represented.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
Maybe a little bit more specific conditions of the porch floor. When I was at the property, I didn't see any really real problems with it. So maybe some more specific examples.
Certainly.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes.
We'll see you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just for restate, the application has been deferred. Again, the final decision, final vote of approval will be official at the next meeting when minutes are approved. Official notification will be sent after the next meeting. Thank you. Okay. Next is application COA 0074.
Could I request just a really quick break, maybe
We can do
3 minutes?
5-minute recess. Sure. All right. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. 602 South Boylan Avenue. All right. Does any member of the committee have an interest in this matter or otherwise feel that they cannot be impartial or fair in hearing this case? All right, I'll have the applicant and anyone who will be presenting evidence, please stand up and come forward. I ask you to please state your name for the record and also state your address.
Brooke Tate, 509 Burton Street.
Sarah Baum, 602 South Boylan Avenue.
Daniel Baum, 602 South Boylan Avenue.
All right, and all individuals who will be presenting evidence, if you can please step forward and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And is the property owner present? Great. All right, at this time, I'll call on staff to make their presentation.
This is case COA 0074, 2022 for 602 South Boylan Avenue. It is in the Boylan Heights Historic District, which is a general HOD. The nature of the request is to construct a second story on an existing rear addition and remove a dormer on that rear addition. As you can see here, the property is at the corner of West Lenoir and South Boylan. Here's a view of the structure from South Boylan. And again, this is closer to the intersection of Boylan and Lenoir. This is a view from the sidewalk on Lenoir of that existing addition area. And again, a view of Lenoir of that existing addition. This is from Lenoir looking from a little further to the west, looking back at the addition where that dormer is currently. And this is back on Boylan of just a view of that south facade, which is up close to that neighboring house. Staff concerns the built mass to open space provided. The calculations compared the existing, not the original. Height is also a concern in that the rear of the house is abutting the side of a neighboring house, and there are not many examples of that type in the neighborhood. And some material detail information was not provided.
I now recognize the applicant to present their evidence.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I would just like to say about the staff concerns, the built mass to open space. I recalculated that with the original, which is basically just the mass without the garage portion. There's a 2-story garage on the right side of the house. So it's approximately 2,716 without that, which is 48%. So we would be increasing from 48% to 71%, which would be a 23% increase instead of a 15% increase. And I apologize for that omission. The height of the house, we are proposing to raise the height of what that garage is currently. However, this height is still, subservient to the main height of the house. And the garage is already there with windows that face that neighbor that is the concern of staff. So we're essentially just putting something in that same plane 2 feet higher because the garage right now is 2 feet lower than the house. You go down, and then the upstairs is 2 feet lower than the second floor. So you can't connect that without lots of stairs, and there's just not enough room to get stairs in there and all of the program that they want. So that's why we're proposing to lift that up. But given that there is already windows on that side overlooking that neighbor, it is pretty close, but it is already in place. And of course, I can provide any material detail information that's lacking. I wasn't aware. And I'm here to answer any questions. I'll just keep it brief and let you guys ask away.
Thank you. Is there anyone here present who wishes to speak in support of the application other than the applicant? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? Is there anyone present who have questions or wish to make comments regarding the application? Now I'll open the floor to my fellow commissioners for questions.
The windows that are in question from staff, currently, that's just a clear story. That's not a viewable window.
It is, I mean, what is it, about 6 feet high?
The window?
The windows upstairs on the garage?
On the garage.
They're,
Are you talking about above the garage looking out into the neighbor's house?
Yeah, I
So
think they're
that's
about-
probably 4 feet high?
But you don't look out of them.
yeah, you do.
Oh, you
They're,
can.
they're
yeah.
just, they're like,
And
they're
they
square
open and
windows
close,
about
they're
right
regular
here.
windows.
Okay.
But they go out like this, not a.
It's a bay of windows that, and it's a shed dormer to get ceiling height in there.
Probably 5 or 6 square windows that.
But
go
that's an
out.
actual floor level inside that garage.
Yes, sir.
That's inconsistent with the floor levels of the
Right.
of the primary structure.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I just thought it was a clear story into the garage itself. I didn't know it was an actual viewable window. And how
Has-
far, oh, I'm sorry.
Has a property survey been completed?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a
Yes.
survey.
It should
Okay.
be included.
Thank you.
What's the distance between, because again, I'm seeing staff says abuts the neighboring house. How close are they?
I think it's 5 feet. It's just that, so this original lot was subdivided years ago, and that other house was built. Our property was the original house on this corner, and the Sanborn map showed it extended all the way back. So when they divided that at some point, they just built
When you say it
closer.
extended all the way back?
It included the neighboring property.
Oh, okay.
So the
There's a-
Sanborn map
there's
on
a-
page
there's a
35.
Sanborn map, yeah.
Where's that?
39.
Yeah, it goes half the block back, so there was a back alley. So that's sort of the reason this is an atypical
Oh, the lot was
situation, is that this
subdivided.
wasn't an original house.
I thought the house went all the way back, and I thought, my gosh,
I'm
they
sorry.
chopped off half this house?
I'm sorry. No, the lot.
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
That's
Okay.
the reason it's not a typical condition in the neighborhood. It's because it was built
I
later.
see.
The neighboring house was built later.
Okay. Is there if for some reason we have a discussion about this, I'm gonna ask the question now since I don't wanna have to open the hearing back up. Are you opposed to the idea of, if this comes about, of pushing that second floor addition back to the ridge line of the existing garage? To basically be in line, I think, with where the clear story is now?
Oh, it's not we wouldn't be able to do the addition at that point because part of the second floor in the main house, there's really tall ceilings. So the levels are completely off.
No, what I'm saying is not change of plane in the section, but change of pushing the,
Like leaving the garage as it is and then
basically
going behind it?
where the peak of the gable is on the garage. If the addition came to that point rather than coming all the way to the edge of the garage. Just so that you have more distance between that and the existing, and the house next door across, in the lot
Yeah, I
next
think
door.
we'd have to completely redesign it because just the narrow width of that wouldn't really make sense for any
Okay.
room and space, so I would,
Just wanted to get the feasibility of that.
yeah,
Okay.
because, the garage is already narrow, you can see it's like I think maybe 12 feet. So to get a usable room half that size really just doesn't
Well,
work.
no, what I'm doing is yanking it back to the ridge line of the garage. But what you're saying is even chopping it off that much would be an issue.
Yeah, if we can't maximize that, that 12 feet, I'm not sure that they would want to do it.
Did you understand my question?
I did.
Okay. I don't know that she did.
No, she did.
She did, okay.
I'm satisfied with the response, but
okay.
I would like us to also talk about it a little bit
Okay,
more.
gotcha.
Now, I will say in the back part where there's room to offset that 12 feet, where you're not overhanging the garage, that would be possible. But
That's
not,
what I was asking.
Yeah.
sorry, not in the, I guess in the front part.
So right now the addition goes to here. I was saying, is it feasible to stop it at the ridge line versus coming all the way over here?
Right, if we, correct, and as long as we didn't come out like over the garage, we could definitely
Okay.
minimize it.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Um,
hear. Thank you.
You'd have to structurally rebuild every,
Yeah,
it'd be a little bit trickier.
right. I just wanted to find that out before we discussed it.
Last question, Wes. At least for me anyway, in the congruity analysis, first off, it's a really nice application, and I like the design very much. Think it improves the house. Some of our feedback might not be based on that, though. Our desire to like an application, but very well done application. The congruity analysis about abutting adjacent properties. This is a unique property, being a corner lot, and a lot of those examples provided showed adjacent properties that were very close, but they were generally a side yard application and not a rear yard application. And I'm sure when we discuss, my concerns will become more clear, but I just wanted to know, my question for you is, did you find any precedent examples of rear yards that were 2 stories that were this close to the rear yard property line?
No.
Okay.
I did not, but I will say that the precedent is already here. There's already the 2-story, slightly smaller, on the exact same plane. So we're just simply raising it a few feet.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Yep.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. I will note for the record that no evidence in opposition was presented, and the statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. This time I'll close the evidentiary hearing and open the floor for committee discussion.
I like your idea, John. Stepping it back. I'm not sure it's needed. I think retract that, but overall, I think it improves the design of the house.
I do.
It looks less
think
awkward.
so too. Yeah.
But I really struggle with such a tall
Yeah.
addition
That's
because
why I think John's idea is good.
the prior approval was really it was under the it's an attached garage, which is a unique condition in any of the districts, and so there was a lot of precedent that was set on that. You can tell from the design, this is a perfect image to look at, that the objective of that was that the garage was more as an accessory structure not as the primary structure. It became part of the primary structure, though, by virtue of being connected. And so to allow it to be overbuilt, we're in my opinion, we're changing what that precedent is to saying the primary structure can abut the rear property line within 5 feet or so. And to me, it seems like a significant evolution of a prior decision that was made with a different intent in mind.
Right. Would this be approved if it were all done at once?
No.
Yeah, right.
The answer is
Well,
no.
I mean, we
Yeah, exactly.
I thought of,
I'm
I
not
said
sure we
that
can make
quickly,
that-
Ian, because I was taking notes on all the cases, and I thought that earlier this week, I had that exact same dilemma, and that's why I answered no so quickly.
Yeah.
And, I think but I am okay if they push it back to the ridge line. No?
So, well, my feelings, John, are that it should extend to maybe the edge of the one-story bay portion. I don't, which wrecks the project. I will acknowledge it. It makes it a very different project, but that is more
In keeping with what was
in
intended.
keeping with the built mass, especially of this particular, or built volume of this particular parcel, especially now that it's been reduced to 2 parcels. It's, and that's why I'll admit I'm struggling with whether or not, I can't say whether, it's not a value to say whether or not I like the proposal as it is, right? I'm going by the guidelines.
Yeah, I think this discussion has partly answered my question, but the question of, or the issue, or the proposal of bringing the addition back, or the ridge line, or back to the bay window, how do you all think that fits in or doesn't fit in with the congruity standard for this district?
I think that would make it more congruous, because I don't believe there's an example of a residential building that is this close, the primary structure is this close to the rear yard. They provided great examples. I drove by every example that they provided in the application. It's very thorough. There are some very tight side yard setbacks, but I don't see justification for the rear yard setback being the full height, essentially, of the primary structure. And I understand that the statement was made that they're only raising the garage 2 feet, but that's 2 feet of the floor, the second floor, finished floor elevation, not the overall structure, which, the elevations are very clear, of the new work plans that show sort of the overbuild.
Well, and I'm going to play devil's advocate just for the
Go for
sheer
it.
collegiate possibility of it. Do you consider, is this really a rear yard? Could it not be considered a side yard? because
By
of the corner?
UDO, it's a rear yard.
By UDO, yeah.
So your issue, John, is the fact that the addition, it will now be considered a residential area of the house, and therefore the residential area of the house is now 5 feet from another house. Is that your issue?
Are you asking me or John?
I meant Rob.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Is that your issue?
Well, no, so the garage is currently it's already part of the primary
Part of
structure.
the house, but they don't use it as a living space.
Sure.
Right. So now they would be using it as a living space.
Yeah,
They're
and I'm
extending the house to within 5 feet of another house.
Oh, I see what your point is.
Yeah.
It's no longer an accessory structure.
Mm-hmm. No longer an attached accessory
That was
structure.
the point I was trying to articulate
okay.
earlier. Yes.
All right.
Hold on just a second, and we'll recognize you.
How do you feel, Ian? I mean, in terms, I mean, you said you like the idea of pushing it back to the ridge line.
I think that I agree with you more than I'd agree with Rob. But I do see Rob's point.
I
It does
see
set a precedent.
Agreed, but since this is no longer,
But it's also a very unique property, so.
yeah, it's a very unique property.
And we do,
Very odd
yeah.
one. I mean, the reason that I want to push it back is not only for some sort of open space between, more open space than it would be if it was against the edge to the neighboring property, but just the scale drop or that sheer wall going straight
Mhm.
up is what concerns me more.
And John, I'm going into design territory, but, you know, I think the rear wall appearing to bear on the ridge of the garage, that just seems really awkward to me.
That seems awkward to
No,
me as well.
I agree.
That-
I agree.
You could offset it just a little bit and make all the world of difference, but if you line up the ridge of the roof with the back of that addition, it's gonna look really weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess-
Where do you think we should go?
I think before we make any decisions, it appeared the applicant would like to probably make some statements based on the committee's discussion. So I'm going to open up the evidentiary portion of the hearing to allow the applicant to make comments based on the committee's discussion.
Earlier I said that none of our examples was right on the back property, but 711 McCulloch Street, if you look at page 37, it is very close. I can't give you the exact dimension that it is, but
It's not that close.
It's
I'm
not
sorry.
that close, but it's
Yeah.
a full 2-story. I mean, it has a very similar
good precedent.
scale, and it's the closest thing that I can come to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What
And
page
again,
is-
that wasn't the original.
37.
Page 37.
Are there any questions for the applicant or staff based on what the applicant just stated? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Above the garage is living area. I mean, it's not just a garage for them, so I don't know if that makes any difference in.
Are you
how
talking
you
about
treat
the current state of
the
it
current-
now, or
the current.
Okay.
Can
It's
you
finished.
access it from the inside of the house?
It's the insides. You come out of the kitchen and go up the stairs up there.
That says it through the garage. Like you have to go out into the garage to get to it, but you access the garage from the kitchen.
Do you have to go from a heated space to an unheated space to a heated space?
It's all heated.
Okay.
The garage is actually heated and cooled.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Anything else, or you? Okay. We'll close the evidentiary portion and re-enter committee discussion.
It's really,
Well,
it's
see,
really
I didn't have
big.
much problem with this one until I understood the context better. And this is one of these things where you need the context to understand the issue. So, because when you, and this is, I think this is the problem that we run into sometimes with individual projects where a wonderful presentation, by the way. I want to reiterate that. But the one thing that I always lack in all of these presentations is that we're going off of a congruency to neighborhood, not congruency to element necessarily. And so, and we are at some level, but basically it is the fabric of the neighborhood. And when we have individual I don't want to call it belly button, but it's the only thing I can think of is a belly button focus. It's harder to understand, harder to understand the ramifications of what that ripple effect has across the overall fabric. It can be misleading, and through this discussion, it's brought up questions for me versus me being just a flat, yeah, this is fine.
Rob, what do you think about pushing it back to before the ridge line of the garage? What are your thoughts on that? You think it's the same, or?
If I may interrupt, that is not what the applicant has proposed.
Okay.
So that would be too close to designing by committee.
Yep. Understood. Thanks.
I mean, the only thing that we can kind of give comment about, I think, is the relative scale of that addition.
I think it's incongruous as designed, and I think it could get to a point of congruity, but I feel like it's currently incongruous.
With minor modification or major modification. All right, we wouldn't know.
That's subjective language.
Subjective language. And that incongruity is, I mean, this is a very unique situation. But it does speak to scale issues, to the fabric of the neighborhood, not just the scale of the house, but the scale of the neighborhood.
Wes, I would make a motion to defer that we do not have enough evidence to show that the scale is congruous with the neighborhood.
I can agree with that.
And also, I would like to add to that I would like to see some just diagrammatic evidence that the existing footprint, what the dimensions are to the property line as they are today, because there's we can do a scale off your drawings, but I'd like it to come from the applicant so that we knew that. And I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, really nice application.
Nice second.
A motion has been made to defer the application based on the fact that the application as presented is incongruous with the character of the district. It's been seconded by John Reese. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's approved unanimously. The motion to defer. So again, just to restate, the application has been deferred for the reasons stated. The decision will be official at next month's meeting when the minutes are approved, and you will receive official notification at that time. Thank you.
I know, we're going to be stacked up later on.
Okay. Next matter on the agenda, COA 00752022, 727 South Boylan Avenue. Is there any member of the committee that has an interest in the matter or otherwise feels that they cannot be impartial or fair in the hearing of this matter? All right. Each person who will be presenting evidence of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Brooke Tate, 509 Burton Street.
Aston Barnes, 727 South Boylan.
Anthony Gregg, 727 South Boylan Ave.
All right. You'll all please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And are the property owners present? Great. At this time, staff will make their presentation.
This is case COA 75, 2022 for 727 South Boylan Avenue in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The request is to remove the upper rear porch, construct a ground floor addition, construct a new upper rear screen porch, construct upper rear deck with stairs, construct rear concrete patio, expand rear paved parking area, remove site walls and pergola, alter a non-historic window, and install new windows. And as you can see with the site map here, this is a property that fronts on Boylan Avenue, but also has its rear yard fronting along Dorothea Drive. This is the view of the existing house from South Boylan Avenue. And a view down the side of the house looking toward the Dorothea Drive section of the property. This is the same property or side of the property. And the rear view from Dorothea Drive. And a clear view of the existing structure there with the driveway. Existing rear yard landscaping at the street side. And staff concerns are the neighborhood parking evidence provided is not representative of the proposed request. The parking pad screening from the street, planting plan was not provided. Smooth painted finish for fiber cement would be a typical condition. Gutter and downspout locations and exterior lighting specifications, if any.
The applicant now has the floor to make their presentation.
The neighborhood parking evidence is not really, I don't see that as a primary concern of this application, and that we are expanding it very slightly, and it's hard to find one of those in the neighborhood because this is new construction and an open lot with a back alley. So I don't think it's an unreasonable proposal, but it was hard to find exact evidence of other lots like this one. Happy to answer any questions about the application. And certainly we can do screening with planting plans after we've developed the drawings further and met with landscape architects.
So, got to go through this little process.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? Is there anyone present who has questions or comments on the application? Now, at this time, I'll open the floor for commissioner questions.
On the proposed architectural site plan, I'm going to have a few questions about the proposed additions steps. So on the architectural site plan, there's a heavy dashed line that's identified as an easement line. Is that a setback, or is that in fact, is easement the correct terminology, and what is that easement?
I'm going to let the owner speak about the easement,
Okay.
if that's okay, because it's a legal matter. And
So the history of this lot is it was originally a single lot. I believe in 2005, the owner of the house, when you're facing from Boylan to the left, subdivided the properties and built the 3 homes. Actually, it was mentioned earlier, the minimum lot sizes necessary to build the homes. So they drew the plot as it's drawn, as you can see with the actual plot, and then prior to selling 727, the original owner gave himself an easement based on that line to make the plot rectangular, more regular.
Okay.
So the easement is for landscaping only. The only rule on the easement is that a fence for our property, applying to our property, the only thing that the easement says is we cannot build a fence within 2 feet of the easement lines. There are no other rules as to what either of us can do on either side of the easement line.
Okay, so the steps would be permissible abutting that easement line, but a fence would not.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing about any other building.
Okay. So follow-up question on the design, would having, part of our, objectives here to, preserve the character of the historic district. And so, I'd love to see a way that we could screen the steps, but did you study the steps at the rear of the house, and does that make the parking pad then technically infeasible to say have the steps run along the back of the deck? And you may have not studied that, and that would be an okay answer too.
No, that's right. That's why we didn't do it there. We wanted that access. And I mean, if you are in that basement looking out, nobody wants to look at stairs going down. We want to tuck them in the side. And also to be able to allow them to park there. There's that issue of two behind each other. So if we can actually get some parking and let them each have a spot, that's what we were going for, and moving that stair off to the side. We also have such significant elevation dropping from the front. It's just really minor, like you can't hardly see it at all. So I wasn't as concerned about putting it where it's seen from the front as I normally would be, just because there's a but there can be plantings to screen it, and
Okay.
I mean, we can figure out a way to screen it, or we could shorten the pad a little bit and get some more plantings in there.
Okay. Do you have to have a stair? Is that a performance requirement of the project? Okay.
We felt pretty strongly about a stair just for easeability and the way they're going to use that space. I feel like that's
Okay. And final question for me, and then I'll shut up. Parking pad area, was any consideration for an impervious surface given for that?
We can certainly visit that.
I'm sorry, a pervious surface. I'm mixing my words.
We have, our calculations allow for more pervious area, so I didn't explore that.
I'm sorry, let me re-ask my question. Were considerations for pervious paving surfaces considered there?
Right. And I'm saying because the allowable lot area and calculations allow for us to have it, I didn't consider an alternative just to kind of match the concrete that's there. We could certainly look at some alternate.
Thank you. It's a nice application, nice project.
I would like to add a comment as staff if it's permissible by the chair.
Yes.
Just wanted to note two things, all good questions and discussion. However, the programmatic concerns for the proposed project are not part of your consideration in a decision. It's strictly about the proposed project in terms of congruity with the guidelines. Also, this is a pretty confusing subject in general, I think, for committee members, applicants alike. But our built area review within the design guidelines is not the same thing as impervious surface calculations. It is strictly about sort of amendment to the original state of the lot over time. So what is that original historic condition, and how much of that lot is being proposed to change from that original condition? In terms of whether that is a significant change, that's what you're judging.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Aaron.
Any additional questions from the committee members? All right, I will note no evidence in opposition was presented, and note for the record that statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. I will close the evidentiary hearing portion of this application and move to committee discussion.
Rob, what's your concern about that stair?
Visibility from the street, but I think it can be, there's a pretty compelling rendering in the application. On page 29.
You said 29?
Yeah. Of the application, not the presentation. I'm sorry, Wes. I can pull up the presentation.
Before I visited the site, that was my only concern about the whole project, and looking at the front, looking from the front of the house, I don't see it being that much of an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Well,
slopes back so
there's
far.
existing plantings
Uh-huh.
there's a really good photo of that as well.
Mhm.
That if we could have some reassurance, I would have no concern if we had some reassurance that there was some similar
Yeah.
condition in the future.
Well, I mean, those plantings might not always be there, but
It's true.
even if they weren't, the property slopes off so far that it still wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I understand your concern. I don't know-
Principally, it's coming from a place where an addition, generally, we would take the position that an addition should be inset rather than outset from the primary structure. Does that resonate?
It does.
But
But I don't, yeah, I think, here's one where I think it's so low on the property. I'm sorry. I think it's so low in the property line in the elevation that, I mean, hell, excuse me. Excuse me.
make sure that's in the minutes.
Yeah, please do. It doesn't, the railing doesn't even start until the band board.
Sure. I could be convinced.
Yeah. And I think that, I see it more as a ground plane, I see it more as a ground plane landscape feature than I do part of the house. And does that?
Explain that.
I see it more as a ground plane feature, like a landscape feature.
The stairs?
Yeah. I mean, in this condition, because it's so below the house. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that because it's below the band line.
Okay.
On the from the front elevation, from the street.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you stand at the street, you just don't see it that much. That's all.
Ian, any thoughts?
None further.
All right. John, a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Based on the application and the evidence provided in this hearing and this used to be written out. Yeah, on the staff report. I move that we approve this application with the following conditions. That the fiber cement or composite trim be painted and installed with the smooth side facing out. That the off-street parking area be screened from view of Dorothea Drive with screen plantings. That the following be provided to be accepted by staff prior to installation or construction. A, visual landscaping site plan and planting locations reflecting condition 2. B, drawings showing installation locations for gutters and downspouts. C, exterior lighting specifications and location, if any. And I will entertain a motion to alter my motion to include screening for the stairs.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So that'd be a friendly amendment to
My own motion.
Yeah, friendly amendment to your own motion. John has moved that the application be admitted subject to his stated conditions, seconded by Rob. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the application is approved, subject to the conditions as stated by Mr. Reese. The final decision will be official at next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. And then you will receive notification at that time after next month's meeting. Thank you for being here and presenting your application and sticking through the meeting this long. Wish we could give you something for your time, but unfortunately we cannot. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on next to COA 077 2022, 410 Northeast Street. Is there any member of the committee who has an interest in the matter or otherwise feels that they cannot be impartial or fair in the hearing of this case? I'll ask that the applicant please state their name and address for the record.
John Hazelton, 410 Northeast Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27604.
All right. This time I'll affirm your testimony. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And are you the property owner?
Yes.
All right. This time I'll call on staff to make their presentation.
This is case COA 0077 2022 for 410 Northeast Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, which is a general HOD. The nature of the request is to construct a masonry wall, remove a portion of a fence, install a patio, install planting beds, and install walkways in the rear yard. You can see here from this map, it's mid-block on Northeast Street, located alongside an alley. This is a view from Northeast on the south side of the property. We're going to walk down that driveway to the end, looking into the rear yard, and again through that fence. This is just through that fence into the rear yard, looking back at a screen porch. And that same porch from across the rear yard. From that same position, looking into the rear yard, there is a rear accessory structure. And again, the same accessory structure. From that previous photo, looking west, the alley is to the right in the picture here, alongside that fence. And this is from the other end of that previous photo, looking back towards the accessory structure. And on the side porch, the neighboring property's brick wall that is included in the application can be seen from this photo here, just across the alley. And again, this is in the alley, looking towards the rear yard. And again, and back towards east, looking at the front of the house. Staff concerns the provided calculations for built area to open space that were available compare the existing, not the original. Substantial evidence was not provided for the proposed brick color, and some material detail information was not provided that is typically included as a condition.
At this time, the applicant is recognized to make their presentation.
Well, thank you for hearing my application, first and foremost. I have one additional document. Is that okay to hand out now? Okay. So, there we go. It just shows another supporting document on the wall material. But just to address the staff concerns, the built area to open space, I would like more feedback on. That's not my, I don't have more information on that right now, but the brick color for the wall, it's not brick. It would just be a stone veneer, gray color, similar to the flagstone irregular patio. And another staff concern I think I saw was the material of the walkways, and that is the same material as the flagstone patio, just continued as a walkway. off the north side. Then the south side of the house will do the exact same patio material, just as a walkway from the driveway out to the backyard. So really not a whole lot to present. Like you can see, we desperately need some landscaping. We finished the renovation in the summer of 2019 and would like to put in hardscapes and landscaping and a privacy wall, similar, like staff mentioned, to my neighbor across the alley. They have a nice privacy brick wall with wood fence on each side. So something to look similar to that, but to match more of our style and color. So yeah, I'll open it up for questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? Is there anyone present who wishes to ask any questions or make comments regarding the application? At this time, I'll open the floor to my fellow commissioners for questions.
So it's a CMU block wall with a stone veneer.
So no, I made a mistake on the first application. I meant to say that. Between me and my builder doing the wall, we had miscommunication. He was saying CMU block wall as I submitted it. Then after I submitted, I realized, no, we actually do want a brick veneer similar to that new document I just handed out. So sorry, but to scratch out the CMU block no longer is what we want to build. We would prefer a stone veneer, because the CMU block I feel like isn't very residential looking, used more in commercial applications, or just a smaller retaining wall. This would look better on a taller wall.
So it would look more like your neighbors.
Similar
Less.
yeah. Well, theirs is red brick. We would want
No, not that neighbor. The one on Oakwood.
What?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I forget the address. 411 maybe. I don't maybe. So actual stone?
So 511 Oakwood Avenue.
Uh-huh.
So I believe stone veneer is
Mhm.
still actual stone. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that
But-
was,
Go ahead.
that was my question, was would you be opposed to building this out of actual brick and actual stone versus?
Yeah, talking to my builder, the height that we need and the width that we need it at, he felt more comfortable doing a block with rebar and then the veneer for structural purposes.
When you say a veneer, is that an actual brick or is it a?
It's stone.
It's a
stone veneer. So like
But is it like one of those,
it's actual stone, but it's laid. It's like thin set onto the.
It's not structural.
Yeah,
It's not
non-structural.
Decorative.
but it's not it's not that thin, is it? Just paper thin that's glued to the wall, or is it?
It's thin, but it's as thin as you could cut stone to
I think it's
apply it as a
probably as
veneer.
thin as they can make it.
Pardon?
I think it's probably as thin as they can make it.
But it's actual stone and actual brick.
Couldn't say for sure.
I'd be curious if you knew of other stone walls, specifically flagstone in Oakwood. There's a number of, and I don't believe they're flagstone, but in other districts there are other granite walls that are character defining. So I'd love to hear about in Oakwood.
Yeah, and from what I see, really close examples are more like knee-high retaining walls, and we want that taller. So I didn't include those. I didn't know if I should have. I kind of regret that, at least showing you in Oakwood the exact, gray stone style that is prevalent through the neighborhood, just along retaining walls and, upwards of 3-4 feet high.
But I think that would be helpful evidence, and from my perspective, that also might be evidence that typically that type of stone is used in a lower wall, and because you provided several examples of really nice brick walls, and so what I'm sort of gently going towards is, the examples were largely brick, except for one that I feel may be incongruous with the rest of the district. And so I really liked the brick examples, and I'll leave it there.
Like I think 511 Oakwood, it is the most similar and has the height, but everything else, like you said, is red brick or it's lower height.
Are you opposed to red brick?
Yeah.
Why?
The color scheme of our home with a gray foundation, we have really no other red brick other than our front porch steps. Everything else is white, gray, black. We want a gray flagstone patio, so I don't feel like that fits next to the gray flagstone patio. I mean, I guess we could do a red brick patio and a red
That was my next question.
wall, but it's not our top choice, so no.
Understood.
Can I ask staff a question? Was that wall at 511 Oakwood, we have any COA for that at all, or?
So I dug through the file. The file for that property is very thick. I was able to find that there was a pre-existing wall in the same location that was stucco. It shows up in all the photos prior to 2001. And there were 2 COAs in 2010 and 2011 that included work on that patio area where that wall is found. And I found some stone material that had been approved through conditions, but it didn't seem like any information about the wall in particular was included in the application that I could find. But it definitely seemed that like the material was approved, but it's currently unclear if it was for that particular purpose, or if it was, the patio. I definitely would need to spend more time with that file in particular. It was a little disjointed.
So no explicit, you haven't found any explicit, like, yes, you can do
Right,
this.
it was not immediately clear that
Right.
that was part of the application. But the change did occur around the time of that, those 2 particular COAs.
Yeah.
Another question. Is your foundation painted?
Yes.
So but it's painted red brick?
No, it's painted gray.
No, I mean, the color's probably.
Yeah.
But it's red brick originally?
I believe so.
That's all I have.
Any other questions, Rob?
No.
All right, I'll note that no evidence was presented in opposition and that statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. I'll close the evidentiary hearing at this time and we'll move to committee discussion.
It's a nice application. It's a, lovely house. Drove by it. Understand why, the applicant would want to improve the rear yard. I feel like the proposed material for the wall is not congruous with the district. However, I don't think a wall would be. I think the wall precedents were all valid. The guidelines do talk about, walls constructed of traditional materials only, and I think that's what I get hung up on, even if there, I mean, I would need a pretty compelling case to want to buy into a veneer stone, though I do think that's better than what the application had of the CMU.
CMU, right, I agree.
I just want to point out, the examples did all appear, the precedent examples, they all did appear to be a privacy wall that was planar, and what's being proposed does turn and abut the house, which is a slightly different and I think potentially awkward condition that's incongruous, because the only example provided was at 511 Oakwood, which you can just tell the mass, there's something about a masonry mass bumping in to wood siding that
is wrong.
That feels inconsistent. If it was masonry to masonry, maybe.
I agree with you 100%. I think the precedent here is really red brick and real construction, not a veneer construction. I think that's more in keeping with the consistency and congruency of the neighborhood, especially also with the walkways. And I agree 100% with Rob in terms of that section that is 5 feet that connects that wall to the house. The wall concept is fine. I think but that section of 5 feet it's an awkward condition that I don't know that I've ever seen a brick wall butt up to.
It could be a privacy fence. I just don't think it should be masonry.
It can definitely be a privacy fence. I have no issue with it being wood or some other fencing material. It's something I've never seen before, where there is a masonry wall, privacy wall attached to or touching the horizontal siding of the house.
Ian, any comments?
Nothing further than what John said, no.
So it appears that the committee feels that the wall itself would be congruous, but the materials as proposed would not be.
Well, in that 5-foot section.
Mm-hmm.
Privacy fence as a concept is fine. It's the materiality of that 5-foot section and the materiality of the walkways as well as the wall.
Would the applicant be comfortable with the application being deferred to present at a future hearing different materials that would be more congruous with the district?
Yeah, and I agree. The wall is probably the biggest question mark. Could I ask that other aspects of this application be approved and the wall not be approved? Because that could be done. That doesn't have to be done for the rest of the patio, walkways, and landscaping to be done, which we would prefer to go ahead and do, and then, like you said, do a wood fence later, leave the existing fence. That's all possible to be untouched.
Can we approve it with a condition?
And I'll let staff correct me if I misstate on this, but my understanding is that if all of the application is approved and the owner agrees, the applicant agrees to simply not proceed with a part of the application, it would require a subsequent application, consideration of something anew, but there's plenty of precedent procedurally for an application being denied, with the exception of one specific portion that is not approved and is deleted from the proposal, and that could be addressed as a condition.
Yes. I think the guidance that we have received is that the cleanest way to address something like this would be for the applicant to amend the application request to omit something that is no longer being proposed to move forward as is, so that the committee could simply approve the current amended condition, just approve with conditions on those items. And then you could submit a subsequent separate major work COA application for the wall itself or a fence separately.
So I think it sounds like what we need to hear from you is that you want to amend your application to remove the wall portion of the project and proceed on everything else.
So I amend the proposed wall and would like to proceed with the application excluding the wall.
Okay, based on that amendment,
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's procedurally where we are right now. Just close the hearing and then I'll go with the amended application. I do too. I mean, you could just ask just for the formality if there are any questions.
based on the amended application, are there any questions for the applicant?
I have one more question. I'm assuming that you, when you knock out, when you take off the wall, you're still going to do the patio or the flagstone in the walkways and stuff?
We would, yes. We can do that without affecting the wall, but yeah, proceed as proposed with the gray flagstone patio, which I feel matches the character of the house.
And that's going to be a
Instead of
question that I
red brick.
bring back to us in discussion because we didn't really hit that before.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? So we'll close the evidentiary portion after having reopened and move to committee discussion.
Ian, what's your take on the flagstone floor?
I don't recall seeing it other places in Oakwood.
Yeah.
You have previously approved flagstone
We
patios in Oakwood.
We have? Okay. So it's there. Okay, so it's not an incongruency issue. Fine. That's all I want to know.
Rob, any comments?
No.
John?
No.
Ian? All right, so it appears that I'll go ahead and make a motion that the amended application presented by the applicant, not including any change to the wall or addition of a wall, be approved subject to the following conditions. That the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or construction. A, construction details for the proposed walkways, and B, detailed drawing illustrating the termination of the wall at the house.
That would go.
That would be going away.
Oh, yes, that would. Let me restate. That the amended application be approved subject to the following condition. The following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or construction. Construction details for the proposed walkways. I believe I've stated the motion correctly. Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the application is approved unanimously. The official decision will be made, or that this approval will be made official once I sign the meeting minutes at next month's meeting, and then notification will be made to you. Moving forward with the wall, I believe we'll just have to submit a new application once you're ready to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
After 2 hours and 45 minutes, I'm just messing up my words. Last but not least,
Hey again.
Hi, this is the Brooke Tate show today.
Application COA 0079-2022, 1301 Fillmore Street. I'll ask that all individuals who will be presenting on this application please state their name and address for the record.
Brooke Tate, 509 Burton Street.
Liz Grandchamp, 1301 Fillmore.
And will each of you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And is the property owner present?
Here.
Great. At this time, staff will make their presentation.
All right. This is case COA 0079-2022 for 1301 Fillmore Street. It is in the Glenwood, Brooklyn Historic District, a street-side HOD. The nature of the request is to construct a one-story rear addition with screened porch, replace the roof, replace front porch roof, construct deck, construct retaining wall, install fence, and install walkway. And as you can see from the map here, it is on the corner of Fillmore and Jefferson. This is a view of the property from the intersection at Fillmore. And from further north on Fillmore. This is the view from Jefferson Street. And again, this is the existing rear condition and a detail. The staff concerns were that a tree protection plan was not provided and some material detail information was missing, but that's typically included in conditions.
All right, at this time, the applicant is recognized to make their presentation.
I'm really going to be brief. I just will answer questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the case? Is there anyone present who has any questions, or wishes to make comments regarding the application? At this time, I'll open the floor for commissioner questions.
Got a few questions about windows. So, really nice application. This looks really nice project. My questions about the windows. So you have a legend. It's not exactly a window schedule, but there's a few different window types. So first, there's one that appears to be a sympathetic 3/1 window, and then there's a few that appear to be casement windows. And so my first question is, the 3/1 is labeled varies, so there's not much description to it. That's E10. Window type E12 is labeled new aluminum clad casement window. So my questions are, what is the intent of E10? Because I bet the varies is based on the size varying somewhat. And then I want to know what the makeup of that window is, and then follow up, why use a mix of casement and double hung?
Okay. What page are you on with that? I'm sorry, I can't.
It's on the elevation pages, so
COA 7.
it's sheet 22. Yeah, COA A6, A7, A5. So the north elevation and the west, which I believe is the rear.
Okay, so the north, yeah, I see. So the casements are there, the big 4
Yep.
casements there. And then the kitchen windows also casements. So quite honestly, when we started this application, I was under the assumption that that particular portion of the house was not under review, because it's not facing the street. It's on the original 50%, but it was brought to my attention later that actually the entire thing you guys review. Colette explained it to me, and it still doesn't make 100. Like
Sure.
In my mind, I went and I drew a quadrant with this is not into review, so she could get her modern windows on this side, and not a big deal. So that's where the intent was. If we have to make those double hung, that's not going to be a deal breaker. No. It was just the fact that we didn't think it was under review,
Okay.
and nobody sees it.
Okay, and then just a follow-up about the representation on the elevation. I don't mean to be nitpicky, but it does look, and it could just be a model element, the way it's drafted, but it looks like there's a horizontal line, but it also has the swing tick marks that indicate that it's a swinging casement. I just want to make sure there's not some sort of horizontal mullion or division in that casement window, correct?
No.
Okay.
Just graphic error.
And then all the new windows are proposed as aluminum clad. Is that a correct statement, or is that still?
We have aluminum clad, yes, because aluminum clad Lincoln wood windows.
That was an approved source from, material from.
Okay. Thank you.
Ian, any questions? All right, I'll note for the record that no evidence in opposition was presented, and the statements appearing in the record were not contested by testimony of witnesses or other evidence which was presented. I'll close the evidentiary hearing at this time and move to committee discussion.
I'm going to stick my neck out and say this is one of the most elegant little additions I've seen. It's lovely.
Thank you.
It's simple. It reflects you've done what I would have done.
Can I ask a couple questions of staff?
Sure.
Colette, I'm assuming there's precedent for aluminum clad windows in this street side overlay district?
So, yes, likely in the street side. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but typically in reviewing new additions, the commission has either approved aluminum clad or wood windows.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay.
Nice catch, though, on the casement issues.
Well, and are we in the committee discussion portion, Wes? Okay. John, I don't know that it's a deal breaker to me because of the street side overlay district and where it's located on this particular house. It's very removed from the public way.
Show me which one exactly you're talking about.
So if you go to page 23 of 40 of the application.
23 of 40 of the application.
Oh, that one square window?
The grouping of four
Oh.
they're all single light casement windows. I
They
guess.
are? Oh, they are.
I guess my question for the committee is, why casement there rather than double hung, and why double hung in the other locations
Yeah, no,
instead
that makes
of casement?
total sense to me. I mean, I think, given the consistency, the design has been so lovingly consistent to the original in such
I agree.
a very sensitive way, that just seems to be an insensitive move, relative to the context. That's all. So I'd love to see those just go back to double hung, and I'd like to use this as an example of what to do.
Well, Colette and Aaron and Brooke know what they're doing, so that helps.
I would just like to add that the operation of the windows isn't necessarily of significance. Casement windows are a historic window type. So I'm not sure if I clearly understand why casement windows would be against the guidelines in this situation.
I don't, for a house of this age though, I don't know of precedent in Raleigh of that.
It is a window type that is commonly approved on additions to historic houses.
Okay.
I think my concern is that it is an issue of consistency in the fabric of the house, not necessarily that casement windows are bad. And as Rob said, it's not a deal killer.
Yeah.
It is a comment in terms of just sticking our nose where we shouldn't necessarily go.
have no other comments.
Ian? John?
Nope, I'm good.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I will. Based on the evidentiary hearing, the information presented at this, based on the information presented in this evidentiary hearing and the staff report, I would like to make a motion that we approve this application with the following conditions. That one, the fiber cement or composite trim be painted and installed with the smooth side facing out. That, two, that the metal roof have flat pans with no ripples or striations. Three, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to issuance of the blue placard. Tree protection plan noting tree locations, construction access, and material storage. Four, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or construction. Standing seam roof specifications, including pan width, rib height, low ridge cap profile and finish. B, construction and material details for the proposed walkway. C, construction details including section of the screened porch. D, exterior lighting specifications and location, if any. And E, detailed planting plan noting species and mature height for any plantings located between the front walls of the house and the street.
Anything about the windows?
That is not a congruency issue, so we can't really kind of bring that up.
Okay.
But it's still a comment.
Commissioner Reese has moved to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the application is approved subject to the stated conditions. This approval will be official at next month's meeting once the minutes for this month's meeting have been approved, and you will be notified at that time.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for sticking with us for
Yep.
3 hours.
Yeah.
We made it through.
Yes.
Everyone go get a drink.
Is there any other business or discussion to come before the meeting?
Well, I don't know if this information was shared at the business meeting, so I'll just share it now since this is one of the RHDC meetings that occurs in the Raleigh Municipal Building. Beginning August 1st, there will be new entry requirements to this building, and One Exchange Plaza will follow suit later this year. All employees and visitors will be required to admit to going through a metal detector as well as bag checks for increased security. So just a heads up that the next business meeting, that won't be a thing yet for OEP. It will be eventually by 2023, but certainly the next COA meeting, that will be in effect. And you can enter the building still via the third floor from the parking deck or from the front entry on Hargett Street. Those are your two access points.
Lovely. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Anything else, Raz?
Mr. Chairman, if I can make one comment, you've heard a lot of cases tonight and got into the weeds into a lot of them, so it might be a good time to just make one comment, a legal comment, and it falls sort of within the heading of training, but I can do it in a minute when we get up before 8. So the legal issue, as you all know, and again, if I'm stating the obvious, I apologize, but the legal issue in all your cases is congruity of the application with the special, or congruity of the improvements that are proposed in the application with the special character of the historic district. That is straight from the general statutes. And those words, each of those words is really important. And law review articles have been written on what is the special character of the historic district. Looking at the guidelines, which are guidelines to guide your decision on that legal issue of congruency with the special character of the district, I just suggest that you sort of talk in terms of satisfaction of the guidelines or meeting the guidelines, because the legal standard is not congruency with any particular guideline. It's congruency with the special character of the district, and it's a forest and trees kind of a thing. But sometimes terminology is important, and I think this is one of those examples where you can sort of be led to a wrong place if you focus on one guideline and say, is it congruous with this guideline or not? It's legally authorized for the committee to approve an application, notwithstanding the fact that, or even though it doesn't meet every single guideline. There may be a guideline that is not satisfied, but you still may feel that there's overall congruity with the district. And conversely, there may be an application where you feel that a guideline is really critical in the case, and if the guideline is not satisfied or met, it does lead you to that ultimate legal conclusion that there is not congruity with the special character of the district. So that's just the point I felt might be the time to make that. Satisfied or meet a guideline, again, it's congruency with the guideline is not the legal standard. It's congruency with that special character overall of the district.
Satisfies the
As
guideline.
Tanya likes to say, C architecture is okay.
What's that?
C-level architecture is okay. We're not always going to get, high level.
It doesn't stop me from trying to improve
You have,
the situation.
but you have to rein it in. You can't
know.
design by a committee.
I'll add also, it can be helpful sometimes to know what the other constraints on the project are, such as, can they even do this with the zoning code if they amend it the way the committee says would be a congruous way to push the project forward, so that you know really what kind of constraints you're putting the applicant in. But it also can be very dangerous to ask those questions. Would you, why do you need to do this? Would you still have the space to do what you want to do? It's good to know, I suppose, where they're coming from, but it's not something at the end of the day you can consider. So it's important not to sort of opt into those kinds of questions that are going to make it harder for you from a personal perspective, wanting to help a homeowner, a property owner, that aren't actually a part of the legal standard.
Yeah, I tend to ask those questions relative to would you be opposed to, as a way to understand how dug in on an issue that could go either way and make it
Certainly,
better.
yeah, discussing potential
Yeah.
amendments to the application.
Right.
That's well within
that's
the range. Yeah.
Any other business to come before the committee? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.